take another stab at, not literal, but almost, take another stab at non-duality. This is Kim Michaels, who is a spiritual teacher, and he speaks to this point, the problem that he sees with non-duality and non-dualistic thought, or trying to understand non-duality rather, and some of the non-dual teachers. Let's see what he has to say.
I've said again and again that I see many of these non-dual teachers, many people who have followed non-dual teachings, they only look to this supposedly ideal state, non-dual state of consciousness, but they believe they don't have to look at the dualistic state of consciousness and understand how it works. And that is why non-duality becomes a mind trap. Because if you do not understand how non-duality, how duality works, how the duality consciousness works, you are looking at the concept of non-duality through the filter of the dualistic state of consciousness. And therefore you are creating this, ideal state of a non-dual awareness, but you are creating it through the filter of duality.
So I imagine that his point is basically to say that when people are trying to understand non-duality, especially sitting in these satsangs like Rupert Spira satsang or Tony Parsons or Jim Newman or some other person, and they're sitting inside their satsang and ask their questions, but these, I would say like sort of heady questions, like intellectual questions. It can be really smart people, but yeah. So they do it through, like Kim says, through the dualistic mind, and they try to understand the non-dualistic mind, or they have this sense or idea of what that may be, and they try to sort of understand it through the dualistic mind, which of course is impossible. That's the nature of this mind. I think that is also his point, that we have there is a sort of, this is what makes it impossible to even talk about, because it goes beyond thought, it goes beyond thinking, it goes beyond, that is the whole idea. That is what these traditions say, like Buddhism or Hinduism, Advaita Vedanta, Zen Buddhism, whatever you want to call it. Even in the, they have versions of it in Christian mysticism and Sufism and Kabbalah. And what they say is that there's something that goes beyond. It's like Nagarjuna says, it's neither this nor that, neither this, not this, not this, not that. You can almost only negate it. You cannot understand it. Still, we're able to sort of speak about it, and but here's where we run into problems, I think, and that is Michael's point here, that when we try to understand the non-dual mind, and that's the problem, the paradox, because everything is the nature of reality, they would say, is non-duality, is non-dual, is suchness, is nirvana. This is what we are seeking for. This is non-duality, this is what you're seeking. And so even the distinction he's making, Kim Michaels, between there's this dualistic mind and there is this non-dualistic state. I'm not sure if I'm, interpreting him perfectly here. Maybe he has made another point, but that's still dualistic, Those are two separate minds, and non-duality speaks about, one without the second, as they sometimes say. Let's see if he has something more to say about it. Okay, where is my cursor? There.
Which means it's on this scale with the two extremes. And this is, of course, perfectly fine. When you understand how the world is set up to work. And that's why I have, in one of my non-duality videos, I have compared the world, and it's just an illustration. I'm not saying this is actually the way the work is. It's an illustration. I compared the world to a reality simulator. And what's fruitful about the analogy is that the physical material universe, with its 4 levels, emotional, mental, and identity levels, functions like this reality simulator where we are immersed in it. And at the one extreme,
Yeah, I don't think you need to understand these things either, to be honest. I mean, to have this deep understanding of the non-dual, or rather the dual nature of the mind, you don't need that to understand non-duality. There's nothing to really to understand. The problem, of course, arises when you try to understand it, because there's nothing to understand. But you don't need to understand something in a satsang, have an understanding there, and you don't need to understand. I mean, I haven't watched Kim Michael's videos about it, but there's nothing to understand. That's the point. That's the whole point of it. Of course, in discourse, in reading a text, in some video, you might have the, or, the, if you want to say like the deep understanding may arise within you or within this through reading those words. It's just, I'd say that in relative terms, and this is the problem again, we need to speak in relative terms, using words that are by their very nature dualistic. We need to, yeah. I'm gonna look at. I asked ChatGPT about non-duality, because I just had an interest in non-duality and why we have all these YouTubers and teachers speaking about non-duality all the time, and there's also this criticism of it. I think both are valid. I think both. It seems like in general probably a good thing, with a lot of new teachers speaking about non-duality. But I imagine there's also truth in some of the criticisms, that, yeah, the criticism that Kim Michaels here was speaking about, and I've seen some other people talk about too. So ChatGPT says that non-duality is, from Advaita. So Dvaita means duality, and when you put an A in front of it, like a perspective or something, it negates it. So not to. It's a philosophical and spiritual concept that signifies the essential oneness or unity of all existence. And it has these roots in Advaita Vedanta and also in Buddhism. And they have these core principles of oneness, non-duality, and the illusion of separation, the perception of duality, e.g., for example, me versus you, here, there, is seen as a cognitive illusion result of the mind's tendency to categorize and differentiate. So, they also speak about spiritual practices, often Ramana or self-inquiry, similar to Zen koans, are often the practices that people use to sort of attain it. And I just thought we could take a look at, for example, we could start with the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra, or the Prajna Paramita, Hridaya Mahaprajna Paramita. The Heart Sutra is a Buddhist text, like one of the most revered texts within Buddhism. They speak about this, this non-duality. They say form is exactly emptiness. Emptiness is exactly form. So it's not two. It's not like Kim was speaking about before. He spoke about the sort of non-dual mind and the dual mind. I'm not sure if was exactly what he meant, but just as a reference. So we say we have a non-dual mind and we have a dual mind, but what I say here is form and emptiness are not two. We cannot have a dual and non-dual mind. It's the same. And they speak about sensations, conceptions, discrimination. So thinking, sensing, all those things are just emptiness. They are not born, not destroyed, not stained, not pure. And they go on to saying these things with no no old age or death, no suffering, no cause of suffering, no extinguishing, no path, no wisdom, no gain. So nothing, not even wisdom, not even, transcending ignorance. There's not even ignorance. Everything is emptiness. Everything is empty of form. And then they stop, or they end it rather with, therefore know that Prajna Paramita is the great mantra, the vivid, the best mantra, the unsurpassable mantra. It completely clears all pain. This is the truth, not a lie. That's great to hear. To set forth the Prajna Paramita mantra, set forth this mantra and say, Gati Gati Paragati Parasamgati Bodhisvaha, which means basically beyond, 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 even more beyond, awakening. Oh, how wonderful. Prajna Paramita Hridaya. We're going beyond concepts, ideas. So as long as we are in these ideas, as long as we have an idea of even non-duality, have an idea of self or not self, have an idea of even attaining non-duality or understanding non-duality, or having this non-dual mind in opposition to the dual mind, all those are just empty. And what is what they ask of us or invite us to is going beyond that, to something beyond thinking, beyond words, beyond understanding. They sometimes call it, prajna. That is another type of wisdom. So to be sitting in those satsangs, I mean, I imagine they can be helpful in many ways, or it could just feel nice to be in that kind of group. But trying to understand it, I think this is also this is not a text that I'm looking at from the third patriarch in Zen Buddhism, where they speak about this. In this world of suchness, there is neither self nor other than self. To come directly into harmony with this reality, just say, when doubt arises, not to. In this not to, nothing is separate, nothing is excluded. So they more or less they speak about it explicitly. This is the non-duality stroke within Buddhism. But they also make it clear that you cannot seek it through the mind. I don't remember if they do it in this text, but I think so. Let's see if we search for mind. Yeah, they say mind in many places. If the mind makes no distinctions, 10,000 things are as they are, of a single essence. Yeah. So this may not be it, but in many places, in many texts, they speak about the fact that we cannot search this this truth with the mind, which it seems like so many people are doing within the sort of non-dual, whatever we want to call it, cult, non-dual tradition, the Neo-Advaita tradition, it's sometimes called. This sort of satsang, sitting around talking about non-duality for hours. It seems like some people are struggling and trying to find this truth through talking themselves to death, basically. To be talking and thinking and trying to understand, and which is ironic because that's what all these traditions speak about pretty explicitly. You cannot do that. The focus should be on practice. I mentioned Zen Buddhism. Zen means meditation. So that is the practice. You do it in silence. Even Ramana Maharshi, that is seen as an sort of, I don't think he himself saw it as that, but he's sometimes seen as like one of these Advaita gurus. And he had whatever we want to call it, some sort of satsangs. People came to him and asked him questions, but he, as I understand it, generally tried to teach in silence. So there's a reason why meditation is done in silence. It is because the thinking mind, even though it's of course often present for us because it's ruminating over things, but it's the idea is to go beyond it through inquiry, self-inquiry, for example, to ask yourself the question, who am I, over and over and over, not to get an intellectual understanding or reason yourself into enlightenment, but to have the direct experience of, the ego falling away, or whatever you want to say it, and the truth of reality reveals itself for you. That is the goal of meditation, to awake, to have this bodhisvaha that I speak about in the sutra. And just this, I guess, this question on whether, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing at all to have these satsangs. I mean, it's definitely can be complementing and helpful for some people, I think. But it seems to some degree to be, I mean, it's easy to, it's much nicer for many people, I think, to sit around and go to a satsang and listen to that, or watch YouTube videos like this, instead of doing actual practice, instead of doing at least the practice of meditation, to do the self-inquiry, for example. Who hears this sound? What is this mind? Who am I? Whatever it is, or just sitting, noting, body scanning, whatever it is, that is helping us towards this that we're trying to understand with our minds, that the traditions say we cannot understand with our mind. Still, we do it, and I just wonder about that, because I think many of the teachers aren't very helpful either. There's so many of these non-dual teachers that don't even recommend meditating. They just say that everything is how it is. Everything is just spontaneously happening, which is, of course, true. So they are speaking about, or speaking from, like Kim said, from the non-dual mind or whatever. Everything is, of course, being said from the non-dual mind, or not from the non-dual mind. The non-dual mind doesn't even exist. It's just a concept, like everything. Everything I'm saying now is just, nothing. So, but we can speak about things in relative sense, and maybe that is also his critique again. Kim, what was your name? Kim Michaels. That is teachers, non-dual teachers, that they're speaking about non-duality from the experience of it, sort of, but they don't really provide a good roadmap for it. Just like some traditions from before too. If you take, I think, if it was Jiddu Krishnamurti, there's all this UG Krishnamurti and Jiddu. I always mix them up, but let's say Jiddu has also said that, there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you need to do, everything is just perfect as it is, which is the experience from one who has that experience, and it's true, of course, but it's not true for someone who doesn't have that experience, if we want to speak in relative terms. And in relative terms, there's a correlation between people doing spiritual practices and having that experience. And I don't think the correlation is as strong between people spending a lot of time on YouTube, listening to people speaking about non-duality, or even worse, listening to people asking questions about non-duality to teachers and getting these intellectual answers. I'm not sure. I mean, we don't have a lot of studies done on this. almost none. Everything is anecdotal, and because the traditions are very old, of course there were no what we would call modern science. But yeah, that's as far as I've been, because we speak about, again, in relative terms, there are brain states, we have brain changes that go on, that when we meditate, our brain changes, and over time it changes more, the more work we put in a way. It's not just about that, of course, but there is a correlation again between how much people meditate and the degree to which they experience this, that the traditions speak about. So time have an effect. Putting hours into the practice have an effect. Putting especially effort into it. Maybe we can do a analogy to working out. We often speak about perceived exertion. How much we exert ourselves in the when we do a workout. It's really it's called RP, usually rate of perceived exertion. So if we do like a spinning class, or if we do strength training or something, it is not really how long necessarily that we do it. It's more how much we exert ourselves, and we really. And when it comes to meditation, it's not necessarily pushing ourselves, but like Adyashanti, I think, used to say that it's the attitude with which we approach the practice, to be fully there, to be honest, to be loving, love ourselves and the world to the degree that we can, and just enter that realm and become one with the practice. Dogen Senji said that taking the sasan, his famous Sun teacher or master, taking the sasan position or the meditation position is itself enlightenment. And that is also like a non-dual paradoxical saying. So another Zen teacher famously said that, yeah, what is enlightenment anyway? He got that question, and he said that, well, in the end, it's about sort of erasing the difference between enlightenment and non-enlightenment. And that is also non-duality. It is the same. This is the same. Everything is the same. But in relative terms, most people don't have that experience. They don't have that experience. So, and how do they get it? Yeah, again, I don't think through watching Rupert Spira's satsangs. and I like Rupert Spira, so he seems like a good guy. He seems nice, and he's obviously gone through an awakening and knows what he's talking about. And it can definitely, I don't doubt that it's helpful for many people. And I imagine many of those satsangs come from retreats where they do a lot of meditation, and they maybe have some time for satsang. But people watching them on YouTube and not going through those, having that proportion between meditation. If you go to Zen retreat, for example, they have a talking head there for 30 minutes each day too, called the Teisho, where the teacher speaks for 30, 45 minutes, whatever. Then there's 10 hours of meditation and work. Everything is in silence, and there's a reason they've done that for thousands of years. There's a reason meditation is done in silence. There's a reason meditation retreats are mostly in silence. I don't think that there's anything wrong with speaking too or complementing with it. It's just a proportion of it. It's almost like reading about working out 80% of the time and working out 20% of the time, let's say. It's better to do the opposite. Of course, you can work out way too much. You can do meditation too much and push yourself too much. But I think most of us tend to watch too much YouTube and practice too little. Am I right? So, yeah, that's it. Thank you, and see you in the next one.